Blood drips from the priest's wrist as the dying nun's lips close around the wound. Fire explodes through her veins while he moves inside her, turning agony into ecstasy. Her scream echoes through the rectory as mortality burns away. Tomorrow, the convent will find her empty cell. Tonight, she becomes something unholy. Before we dive in, comment where in the world you are watching from and don't forget to click subscribe. The confessional booth smelled of aged wood and whispered sins. Sister Helena's hands trembled as she knelt on the worn cushion, her white habit rustling in the darkness. 3 months. 3 months of dreams so vivid, so scandalous, that she'd wake with her body burning and her soul drowning in shame. She'd tried everything: cold showers at midnight, extra hours of prayer until her knees bled, fasting until the Mother Superior forced bread into her hands. Nothing worked. The dreams only grew more intense, more detailed, more impossible to ignore. Every night, the same man. Dark eyes that seemed to see straight through to her most secret places. Hands that knew exactly where to touch to make her gasp. A voice that commanded her body to respond in ways the convent had never taught her. Now, at 23 years old, with her final vows approaching in 2 weeks, she could no longer carry this burden alone. The wooden screen separated her from Father Dominic, the new priest who'd arrived at their remote mountain parish 6 months ago. She'd never seen his face clearly, only glimpses during Mass when the candlelight caught the sharp angles of his jaw, the way his dark hair fell across his forehead. But his voice. God help her. His voice in her dreams matched the one she heard every Sunday, rich and deep with an accent she couldn't place. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. Her whisper barely carried through the screen. It has been 1 week since my last confession. She swallowed hard, her throat tight. And I am here to confess thoughts, dreams, things that make me unworthy of my vows. Go on, my child. His voice wrapped around her like velvet, and she felt that familiar heat pool low in her belly. The same heat from her dreams. How could a voice alone do this to her? I've been having impure thoughts, Father, every night for 3 months. Dreams where I'm with a man, where he touches me in ways that are sinful, where I let him do things that make me wake up aching and ashamed. The silence stretched too long. Then, what kind of thing, Sister Helena? Her breath caught. He'd never used her name in confession before. The sound of it in that deep voice made her skin flush. I dream that he kisses me, not like the chaste kiss of greeting, but something hungry, demanding. His mouth everywhere, claiming me. She heard her own voice growing breathy, felt her body responding even as she spoke the words aloud. I dream that his hands strip away my habit, that he sees all of me and doesn't look away. That he tells me I'm beautiful while he makes me feel things I've never felt while awake. And what does he do to make you feel these things? Father Dominic's voice had changed slightly, grown rougher around the edges. Tell me everything, child. Leave nothing out. This is a confession after all. Truth is required here. Helena's hands clenched in her lap. She shouldn't continue. This was wrong, discussing such things in detail. But something in his voice compelled her, made the words spill out like water from a broken dam. He touches me between my thighs where I've never been touched, where I've touched myself afterward, trying to recreate the feeling. His fingers know exactly how to move, exactly where to press to make me come apart. I wake up at the edge of release, desperate and empty, and I have to finish what he started because the ache is unbearable. Have you finished? Have you brought yourself to completion after these dreams? Yes, Father. She hung her head in shame. Every morning, sometimes twice. I've tried to stop, tried to resist, but my body craves the relief. I'm weak. I'm sinful. I'm unworthy of taking my final vows. What else happens in these dreams, Sister Helena? Tell me more. In the dreams, after his fingers make me shatter, he uses his mouth. She could barely speak now, her whole body trembling. He tastes me there, his tongue replacing his fingers, doing things I didn't know were possible. He makes me cry out his name, makes me beg for more even though I shouldn't want it. And what is his name? The one you cry out? She froze. How could she answer that? How could she admit that in her dreams she screamed for Father Dominic himself? That her subconscious had chosen the one man in this isolated parish who was supposed to guide her spiritually, not corrupt her physically? I can't say, Father. It's too shameful. Say it, Sister Helena. Confession requires complete honesty. Who claims you in these dreams? Who makes your virgin body sing? You. The word escaped as barely more than breath. You, Father Dominic. Every night, it's you. The confessional door on his side opened. Before Helena could process what was happening, her door opened too. Father Dominic stood there, tall and imposing in his black cassock, and for the first time she saw his face fully in the dim light filtering through the church's stained glass windows. He was beautiful, dangerously so. Sharp cheekbones that could cut glass, a mouth that looked designed for sin despite his holy calling. Dark hair that fell in waves to his collar, and his eyes, deep brown, almost black, with something ancient swimming in their depths. But it was his expression that stopped her heart. Not shock or disgust or holy horror. Hunger. Pure, predatory hunger. Stand up, Helena. He'd dropped the sister from her name, and she found herself obeying without thought. Her legs felt weak as she rose, trapped in the small confessional space with him blocking the only exit. Do you know what you've done? His voice was barely above a whisper, now, rough with something that made her core clench. Coming here, confessing those dreams to me, telling me in explicit detail how you touch yourself while thinking of me. Father, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Didn't you? He stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body, could smell something spicy and dark that made her head spin. You chose me, Helena. Out of all the priests you could have confessed to, all the churches in all the world, you came to mine. You knelt in my confessional and described exactly how you want me to defile you. She pressed back against the wooden wall, her breath coming in short gasps. That's not why I came. I came to be absolved, to be cleansed of these impure thoughts. His hand came up, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the near contact like electricity. There is no absolution for what you want, sweet Helena, because what you want isn't sin. It's destiny. You've been dreaming of me because I've been calling to you every night, sending you visions of what I'll do to you when you finally surrender. That's impossible. Is it? His thumb traced the air an inch from her jaw, and she felt the phantom touch as if he'd actually made contact. Tell me, in your dreams, do I ever hurt you? Do you ever feel afraid? No. The admission came without thought. I feel safe. Even when you're doing things that should terrify me, I feel cherished, even when you're being rough. His eyes flashed with something that looked like triumph and possession and dark promise. Because you are mine, Helena. You've been mine since the moment you entered this church 6 months ago. I've been patient, waiting for you to come to me willingly. But now that you have, now that you've confessed your desires in my house of God, I'm going to make every single one of your dreams come true. He leaned in, his lips a breath away from her ear. Starting tonight. At midnight, come to my chambers in the rectory. The door will be unlocked. Wear nothing beneath your habit. And Helena? He pulled back just enough to meet her eyes, that predatory hunger intensifying until she felt pinned by it. Bring your rosary. You'll need something to hold on to. Then he was gone, disappearing through the confessional door and leaving her trembling and aching and so desperately aroused that she could barely stand. The church bell chimed vespers, the sound echoing through the empty space. Helena sank back onto the kneeler, her body on fire, her mind racing. She should be horrified. She should report him to the bishop. She should run far away from this isolated mountain parish and never look back. Instead, she was already counting the hours until midnight, already imagining what would happen when she knocked on his door, already dampening the fabric between her thighs at the thought of Father Dominic making her dreams reality. Something was wrong with her. Something was wrong with him. But as Helena pressed her trembling fingers against her heated core through the layers of her habit, trying to relieve just enough pressure to make it through the next few hours, she realized she didn't care. She'd been a good girl her entire life. She'd followed every rule, denied every desire, sacrificed every pleasure in service to God. Tonight, she would serve something else, someone else. Tonight, Sister Helena would fall, and she couldn't wait to hit the ground. The minutes crawled by like hours. Helena tried to focus during evening prayers, but the words of the liturgy turned to ash on her tongue. Mother Superior shot her concerned looks across the chapel, clearly noticing her distraction. If the older woman only knew what thoughts raced through her novice's mind. After prayers, Helena forced down a few bites of the simple evening meal, though her stomach was too tight with anticipation to accept much. The other sisters chatted quietly about the upcoming feast day, about Sister Catherine's arthritic hip, about the new batch of communion wafers that needed baking. Normal, peaceful convent life, a world Helena was about to betray in the most fundamental way. She pleaded a headache and retreated to her small cell earlier than usual. The space was sparse, a narrow bed with a thin mattress, a wooden desk with her well-worn Bible, a simple chair, and a crucifix on the white wall. Everything designed for contemplation and denial of worldly comfort. Helena knelt beside her bed for evening prayers, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, her mind filled with Father Dominic's voice. "Bring your rosary. You'll need something to hold on to." Her fingers found the beads she'd carried since taking her initial vows. Smooth glass worn by countless prayers, the silver crucifix cool against her palm. What did he mean? She'd need something to hold on to. Her dreams had been intense, overwhelming, but always left her wanting more. Would the reality be so much more that she'd need an anchor to reality? The church bell chimed 9, 3 hours. Helena stood and moved to her small mirror, studying her reflection in the dim candlelight. She'd never thought of herself as beautiful. Pretty enough, perhaps, with her pale skin and dark blonde hair that she kept cropped short beneath her veil. Green eyes that Mother Superior called honest. A mouth too full for true piety, or so the elderly Sister Agnes had once commented. She touched her lips, remembering how Father Dominic had stared at them in the confessional, how his eyes had darkened with hunger when she described her dreams. Would he kiss her tonight? Would his mouth feel as perfect as it did in her visions? Helena unpinned her veil and set it aside, then began removing her habit with trembling fingers. The heavy fabric pooled at her feet, leaving her in just her simple white undergarments. She looked at her body, really looked at it for the first time in years. The convent didn't encourage vanity, and mirrors were considered instruments of pride. But tonight, she needed to see what Father Dominic would see. Her shape was modest, neither voluptuous nor boyish, just feminine curves that the habit normally hid completely. Her stomach was flat from the simple diet and daily work. Her thighs were strong from climbing the mountain paths to visit the sick. And between those thighs, beneath the plain cotton, she was already growing slick with anticipation. Wear nothing beneath your habit. The command echoed in her mind. Helena's hands shook as she removed her undergarments, standing completely naked in her cell for the first time since childhood. The cool air kissed her skin, raising bumps across her arms and tightening her sensitive peaks into hard points that ached for touch. She'd never been this exposed, this vulnerable. Even bathing was done quickly, modestly, with as little attention to her physical form as possible. But now she stood bare, letting herself feel everything, preparing herself for what was coming. The church bell chimed 10. Helena redressed in just her habit, the rough fabric scratching against her naked skin in ways that made her gasp. Every movement created friction, reminded her of her state of undress, kept her body humming with awareness. She sat on her bed, rosary clutched in her hands, and tried to pray. But the familiar words twisted into something else. Hail Mary, full of grace, became Hail Dominic, dark and dangerous. Our Father, who art in heaven, became our Father, who waits in his chambers. Forgive me, for I am about to sin, and I cannot wait to fall. 11 o'clock. Helena paced her small cell like a caged animal. Should she go early? Should she wait until exactly midnight? What if he'd changed his mind? What if this was some kind of test, and she was failing miserably by even considering going to him? But no. The hunger in his eyes had been real. The command in his voice had been absolute. He would be waiting for her. The question was whether she had the courage to go. The church bell began to chime midnight. Helena grabbed her rosary, threw her veil over her head, and slipped out of her cell before courage could desert her. The convent was silent, all the sisters asleep after their exhausting daily routines. The stone corridor felt endless, her bare feet silent on the cold floor. Every shadow seemed to watch her pass, judging her choice. The rectory connected to the convent through a covered walkway that crossed the garden. Helena moved through the darkness like a ghost, her heart pounding so hard she was certain it would wake the entire compound. Father Dominic's chambers were on the second floor, overlooking the mountain valley. She'd delivered his meals there a few times when the housekeeper was ill, but she'd never entered fully, never stayed more than the few seconds it took to set down a tray. Now she stood before his door, hand raised to knock, frozen with equal parts desire and terror. The door opened before she could make contact. Father Dominic stood in the doorway, no longer in his cassock. He wore simple black trousers and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up, revealing forearms corded with muscle. His dark hair was slightly mussed, as if he'd been running his hands through it. And his eyes. Those ancient, hungry eyes locked onto her like a predator spotting prey. You came. His voice held satisfaction and something darker. I wasn't certain you would. I shouldn't have. The words came out breathy, unconvincing. This is wrong. Father Dominic stepped aside, gesturing her in. Then leave, Helena. Walk away. Go back to your cell, take your final vows in 2 weeks, and spend the rest of your life wondering what could have happened tonight. His lips curved into a dangerous smile. Or stay. Discover why you've been dreaming of me. Learn what your body is truly capable of feeling. Helena stepped through the doorway. The room was larger than she'd realized, dominated by a massive 4-poster bed with dark curtains. Candles flickered throughout the space, casting dancing shadows. Books lined one wall, ancient tomes with spines in languages she couldn't read. And everywhere, the scent of spice and darkness that was purely him. The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded like doom. Father Dominic circled her slowly, studying her from every angle. His nearness made her skin burn. Did you obey my command? The roughness in his voice sent shivers down her spine. Are you bare beneath that habit? Helena could only nod, her voice stolen by desire and fear and desperate need. Show me. His words were soft but absolute. Lift your habit and show me what belongs to me. Her hands trembled as she gathered the fabric, slowly raising it to reveal her calves, her knees, her thighs. Higher until cool air kissed her most intimate places, and she stood exposed to his burning gaze. Father Dominic made a sound low in his throat, almost a growl. Beautiful. So perfect and untouched. He moved closer until she could feel his breath ghost across her overheated skin. And so ready. I can see how you glisten, how your body weeps for my touch. His hand came up, and she expected him to touch her there, where she ached most desperately. Instead, his fingers traced her ankle, her calf, the sensitive back of her knee, drawing patterns that made her legs tremble. Helena, before we continue, you need to understand what I am. The seriousness in his tone made her meet his eyes. What you've been dreaming isn't fantasy. I've been sending you visions of our future together because you are meant to be mine. But there are things about me you don't know, things that should terrify you. I don't understand. Father Dominic's smile revealed elongated canines that hadn't been visible before, sharp and deadly and impossible. I'm not entirely human, sweet Helena. I haven't been for a very long time. Helena should have screamed, should have run, should have done anything except lean closer, fascinated by those lethal fangs, by the truth finally revealed. You're a vampire. Yes, ancient, powerful, and utterly devoted to the church despite my nature. I serve God in my own way, hearing confessions from sinners who need redemption. His hand slid higher, caressing her inner thigh with the barest touch. And sometimes, very rarely, I find a soul that calls to mine, a woman meant to be my eternal companion. Helena's breath came in short gasps as his fingers traced closer to where she throbbed with need. You want me to be that? To be yours? Not just for tonight, but forever? For eternity, if you'll have me. But first, I need you to understand what that means. I'll claim you tonight, body and soul. I'll make you mine in every way possible. And when you're ready, when you've learned all the pleasures we can share, I'll offer you the choice to join me in immortality. His thumb brushed across her sensitive flesh, making her gasp. But tonight is about making those dreams reality. So tell me, Helena, tell me you want this. Tell me you want me. I want this, Father. I want you. The admission freed something in her chest, some weight she'd been carrying since childhood. Please, make my dreams real. Father Dominic's eyes flashed with dark fire. His hands gripped her waist, lifting her as if she weighed nothing. Helena's habit fell back down as he carried her to the bed, laying her on sheets that felt like silk against her overheated skin. He stood over her, slowly unbuttoning his shirt to reveal a torso that could have been carved from marble. Every muscle defined, pale skin stretched over supernatural strength. Scars crossed his chest, old marks that told stories of violence and survival. Helena reached up without thinking, tracing one of those scars with trembling fingers. Father Dominic captured her wrist, pressing a kiss to her palm that made her core clench. No more, Father. When we're alone, you call me Dominic, or Master, or any other name you scream when I'm inside you. He released her wrist and began gathering her habit, slowly pulling it up and over her head until she lay completely bare before him. But never, Father. Tonight I'm not your priest. I'm the demon you've been dreaming of, and I'm going to teach your virgin body everything it's been aching to learn. His mouth descended on hers, and Helena's entire world exploded into sensation. This wasn't the chaste kiss of holy greeting. This was possession, claiming, overwhelming hunger given physical form. His tongue swept into her mouth, teaching her the rhythm she'd need to match. She tried to follow his lead, clumsy and inexperienced but desperate to please him. Dominic's hand tangled in her short hair, angling her head for deeper access. His other hand roamed her body, learning every curve and hollow. When his thumb brushed across her hardened peak, Helena moaned into his mouth. Her body arched off the bed, seeking more of that perfect touch. He broke the kiss, his lips trailing down her throat to the place where her pulse hammered. So responsive, so eager. His tongue traced her heartbeat. I'm going to enjoy corrupting you thoroughly, sweet Helena, teaching you every pleasure your innocent body can experience. His mouth continued its journey lower, finding her sensitive peaks. When he drew one into his mouth, suckling and teasing with teeth and tongue, Helena cried out. The sensation shot straight to her core, making her clench around nothing, making her ache to be filled. Please. She didn't know what she was begging for, only that she needed more. Dominic, please. Please what, Helena? His breath ghosted across her damp skin, making her shiver. Tell me what you need. Touch me. Like in my dreams. Make me feel what you've been showing me. His hand slid down her stomach, over the slight swell of her belly, to the place where she burned for him. When his fingers finally made contact with her slick heat, they both groaned. So wet for me already. So ready. He circled the sensitive bundle of nerves at her center, applying just enough pressure to make her hips buck off the bed. This is what I've been doing to you every night in your dreams, touching you here, learning exactly what makes you fall apart. Helena's hands fisted in the sheets as he worked her with skilled fingers. It was like her dreams, but infinitely better because it was real, because she could feel his weight beside her, smell his masculine scent, hear his voice praising her responses. One finger pressed inside her, and Helena gasped at the intrusion. She'd touched herself before in shameful exploration, but having someone else, having him, was entirely different. So tight. Dominic's voice was strained with restraint, so perfect and untouched. This sweet entrance has never known anything but your own innocent fingers, has it? No. She could barely form words through the overwhelming sensation. Only me. Only when the dreams became too much to bear. He added a second finger, stretching her carefully, watching her face for any sign of discomfort. In your dreams, what did I do after preparing you with my fingers? Helena's cheeks burned at the memory, at having to voice it aloud. You used your mouth, your tongue where your fingers are now. You tasted me until I couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but feel. Then let's make that dream come true. Dominic shifted position, settling between her thighs. His breath ghosted across her heated flesh, making her tremble with anticipation. Helena's hands found her rosary, clutching the beads as she'd been instructed, needing something to anchor her to reality. When his tongue made the first long, slow stroke through her slick folds, Helena screamed. Her back arched completely off the bed, her entire body going rigid with overwhelming pleasure. Nothing, not even her most vivid dreams, had prepared her for this. For the wet heat of his mouth, the knowing pressure of his tongue, the way he seemed determined to taste every inch of her most intimate places. Dominic held her hips down as he worked her mercilessly, his tongue alternating between broad strokes and focused attention on that sensitive pearl that made her vision blur. He was devouring her, claiming her, showing her exactly what her body had been created to feel. Helena's fingers twisted in the rosary beads as pleasure built higher and higher. She'd brought herself to release before, quick and furtive touches in the darkness of her cell. But this was different. This was overwhelming, consuming, rising like a tidal wave that threatened to drown her completely. Dominic, I can't. It's too much. I can't. You can. His voice vibrated against her sensitive flesh. And you will. Give me your first real pleasure, Helena. Let me taste your surrender. His lips closed around that bundle of nerves, and he sucked hard while his fingers curved inside her, finding a spot that made stars explode behind her eyes. Helena shattered. Her orgasm crashed over her with a force that stole her breath and made her entire body convulse. She screamed his name, hands white-knuckled on her rosary, lost completely to the overwhelming sensation. And through it all, Dominic didn't stop, drawing out her pleasure until she was sobbing with the intensity of it. When she finally collapsed back against the bed, trembling and gasping, he pressed soft kisses to her inner thighs, her hip bones, the slight curve of her stomach. His lips were glistening with her essence when he finally rose over her, settling his weight between her thighs. That was just the beginning, sweet Helena. His hand stroked her face with surprising tenderness. Just the first lesson in pleasure. Now I'm going to show you what it feels like to be claimed completely. Helena felt his rigid length pressing against her entrance through his trousers. Even through the fabric, she could tell he was large, intimidating. Her dreams had shown her this moment, but reality was so much more overwhelming. Will it hurt? The question came out small, vulnerable. Yes. Dominic's honesty was brutal, but welcome. The first time always does. But I'll be gentle. I'll make it as easy as I can. And once you adjust to taking me, once your body learns to accept mine, I'll show you pleasure you can't even imagine. He stood long enough to remove his remaining clothing, and Helena's breath caught. His body was magnificent, all hard muscle and pale skin. But it was the sight of his arousal that made her stomach clench, with equal parts desire and fear. He was larger than she'd imagined, thick and long and already glistening at the tip with evidence of his own need. Dominic settled back between her thighs, his weight supported on his forearms. His rigid length pressed against her slick entrance but didn't push inside yet. Are you certain, Helena? Once I claim you, there's no going back. You'll be mine, forever marked by this moment. Say yes and I'll make you mine. Say no and I'll stop, though it might kill me. Yes. Helena wrapped her legs around his hips, pulling him closer. Despite her fear, I want this. I want you. Make me yours, Dominic. His mouth claimed hers in a bruising kiss as he began to push inside. The pressure was immediate and overwhelming. Helena gasped into his mouth as he stretched her inch by inch, her body fighting the intrusion even as her mind demanded more. Breathe, sweet Helena. Dominic's voice was strained with the effort of restraint. Breathe and relax. Let your body accept me. Helena tried, truly tried, but when he pushed past her barrier, the sharp pain made her cry out. Dominic froze immediately, giving her time to adjust, pressing soft kisses to her face and murmuring words of praise and comfort. You're doing so well. Taking me so perfectly. Just a little more, and you'll have all of me. Another slow push, and he was seated fully inside her. Helena felt impossibly full, stretched beyond what should be possible, joined to him in the most intimate way imaginable. The pain was already fading, replaced by a strange pressure and the beginning of something that might become pleasure. Dominic held perfectly still, his entire body trembling with restraint. Helena, are you all right? She took inventory of her body. The initial pain had dulled to a low ache, but beneath that, something else was building. A restless need for movement, for friction, for something more. Move. She rolled her hips experimentally, gasping at how the angle changed, how new sparks of sensation radiated through her core. Please, Dominic, move. He withdrew slowly, almost completely, before pushing back in with careful control. The drag of his length against her sensitive walls made Helena moan. He did it again, establishing a rhythm that was both gentle and maddeningly slow. This is what you dreamed about, isn't it? Dominic's voice was rough with barely leashed control. Being filled by me, claimed by me, feeling me move inside your virgin body, teaching it pleasure. Yes. Helena's nails dug into his shoulders as pleasure began to build again, but in the dreams, you were rougher, less careful. You took what you wanted. His eyes flashed with dark fire. You're not ready for that yet, sweet one. Your body needs time to adjust. But soon. His hips snapped forward harder, making her gasp. Soon I'll show you exactly how rough I can be, how thoroughly I can claim you. For now, let me make you feel good. Let me show you why women have been surrendering to men since the dawn of time. His pace increased gradually, each thrust going deeper, hitting places inside her that made Helena see stars. The fullness was overwhelming, perfect, exactly what her body had been craving for months. She felt complete for the first time in her life, as if she'd been missing this essential piece, and only now discovered what she'd been lacking. Dominic's mouth found her throat, his teeth scraping over her racing pulse. I can hear your heartbeat. Smell your arousal mixing with mine. Feel how your body clenches around me, already learning to take me. His hips rolled in a way that made his pelvis grind against her sensitive pearl with every thrust. You were made for this, Helena. Made to be claimed by me. Helena felt pleasure building again, different from before. This was deeper, more intense, centered around the place where they were joined. Her body tightened around his length, drawing him deeper, and she heard him groan against her throat. That's it. His pace increased, becoming less controlled. Take me deeper. Let me feel you fall apart around me. His hand slid between their bodies, finding that bundle of nerves and circling it with perfect pressure. Come for me, Helena. Let me feel your virgin body squeeze my length as you shatter. The combination of his words, his touch, and the relentless friction of his thrusts pushed Helena over the edge. She came with a cry that echoed off the stone walls, her entire body convulsing around him. Through the waves of overwhelming pleasure, she felt him thrust once, twice more before he groaned her name and found his own release, filling her with liquid heat. They collapsed together, breathing hard, their bodies still joined. Dominic's weight pressed her into the mattress, grounding her as aftershocks continued to roll through her system. He pressed soft kisses to her face, her hair, anywhere he could reach. Perfect. His voice was thick with satisfaction. You were absolutely perfect, sweet Helena. Are you all right? Did I hurt you too badly? Helena took stock of her body. There was soreness, definitely, and a deep ache from being stretched beyond what she'd known possible. But beneath that was satisfaction, completion, a bone-deep contentment she'd never experienced. I'm wonderful. She turned her head to meet his eyes. That was. She couldn't find words adequate to describe what they'd just shared. Everything I dreamed and more. That was just the beginning. Dominic slowly withdrew, making them both gasp at the sensitivity. There's so much more I want to show you. So many ways I want to claim you. He rolled onto his back, pulling her against his side. But for now, rest. Your body needs time to recover. Helena settled against him, her head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. A vampire's heart, still beating despite centuries of existence. The wrongness of where she was, what she'd done, tried to creep into her thoughts. Tomorrow she'd have to face the other sisters. In 2 weeks she was supposed to take her final vows. She'd just given her virginity to a priest, a vampire, a creature who should be her spiritual guide, not her lover. But wrapped in Dominic's arms, his hand stroking her hair with unexpected gentleness, Helena couldn't bring herself to regret it. She'd spent her entire life denying herself, following rules, being good. Tonight she'd been gloriously, magnificently bad, and she wanted to do it again. Sleep, Helena. Dominic's voice was a low rumble beneath her ear. When you wake, we'll continue your education. And tomorrow night, if you come back to me, I'll show you what it's like when I stop being gentle." The promise in his words sent heat pooling between her thighs despite her soreness. Helena closed her eyes, a smile playing at her lips. Tomorrow night couldn't come fast enough. Helena woke to pale morning light filtering through heavy curtains. For a moment, disorientation gripped her. This wasn't her narrow cell with its rough wool blanket and hard mattress. This was luxury. Silk sheets and down pillows and the lingering scent of spice and sin. Memory crashed back. The confessional. The midnight summons. Dominic's hands and mouth teaching her body pleasures she'd never imagined. She was naked in Father Dominic's bed, thoroughly compromised, her final vows in shambles before she'd even taken them. Helena should have felt guilt, shame, crushing remorse. Instead, as she stretched and felt the pleasant ache between her thighs, all she felt was satisfaction and anticipation for more. "You're awake." Dominic's voice came from across the room. Helena turned to find him standing by the window, already dressed in his black cassock. In the morning light, he looked every inch the devoted priest again, though she now knew the predator that lurked beneath the holy facade. His eyes traveled over her, dark with memory and renewed hunger. "How do you feel?" "Sore." Helena's cheeks heated as she pulled the sheet up to cover herself. "But good. Really good. Come here." It was a command, not a request. Helena's body responded before her mind could question. She wrapped the sheet around herself and crossed to him, bare feet silent on the stone floor. Dominic's hand cupped her face, thumb tracing her kiss, swollen lower lip. "You're beautiful in the morning light. Soft and well-loved and thoroughly mine." He leaned down, pressing a kiss to her forehead that felt surprisingly tender given the dark passion of the previous night. "But you need to return to your cell before the other sisters wake for morning prayers." Helena's stomach dropped. Reality crashed back with the force of a physical blow. The convent. Her vows. The life she was supposed to be living. "What do I tell them? The truth? That I spent the night in your bed?" "Tell them nothing." Dominic's voice was firm. "What happens between us stays between us. To the world, you're still the devout novice preparing for final vows. To me, in private, you're my lover, my future companion. The woman who will eventually share my eternal existence." "But Helena," his expression grew serious, "you need to understand the risk. If anyone discovers our relationship, the consequences will be severe. For both of us." "I know." She did know, had known even as she walked through his door last night. Discovery meant excommunication for her, possibly worse for him, despite his supernatural nature. The church had ways of dealing with creatures like him, even those in service to God. Then return to your cell. Attend morning prayers. Go through the motions of your daily routine. His lips curved into a wicked smile. "And tonight, after the others are asleep, come back to me. I have so much more to teach you." Helena nodded, already anticipating the long day ahead, counting the hours until darkness fell again. She dressed quickly in her rumpled habit, very aware of Dominic watching her every movement with predatory attention. At the door, she paused. "Dominic? What made you come here? To this isolated mountain parish? Why serve a God who would condemn what you are?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Because I've seen what monsters become when they reject all moral guidance. I've lived for 5 centuries, Helena. I've seen empires rise and fall. I've watched humans commit atrocities in the name of religion and atrocities in the name of godlessness. The church gives me structure, purpose, a code to live by that keeps me from becoming the very demon I sometimes feel lurking in my soul." He crossed to her, tilting her chin up to meet his ancient eyes. "And sometimes, very rarely, it brings me someone like you." Someone worth all the centuries of restraint and service. Someone worth risking everything for. His kiss was brief, but searing, a promise of more to come. Now go, before I strip that habit off you again and keep you here all day. Helena slipped through the door and into the pre-dawn darkness, her heart racing, her body still humming with the memory of his touch. She made it back to her cell without encountering anyone, stripping out of her habit and washing quickly with cold water that did nothing to cool the heat in her blood. The church bell rang for morning prayers. Helena dressed in fresh undergarments this time, though her body protested the barrier between her skin and the rough fabric of her habit. She joined the other sisters in the chapel, kneeling in her assigned place, going through the familiar motions of morning devotion. But the words felt hollow now. How could she pray for purity when she'd spent the night writhing in sin? How could she ask for strength to resist temptation when she planned to run straight back to it tonight? Mother Superior's voice cut through her thoughts. Sister Helena, you'll assist me in the kitchen today. We're preparing food for the village charity baskets. Yes, Mother Superior. Helena kept her voice steady, her eyes downcast in appropriate humility. The morning crawled by in a blur of chopping vegetables and kneading bread. Mother Superior made small talk about Helena's upcoming final vows, about the life of service ahead of her, about the joy of surrendering oneself completely to God's will. Each word felt like a knife twisting in Helena's gut. She was a fraud, a hypocrite, planning to take vows of chastity while secretly warming the bed of the parish priest. At noon, Father Dominic arrived to bless the charity baskets before their distribution to the village poor. He moved through the kitchen with calm authority, his voice rising in Latin blessing, his hands making the sign of the cross over the food. When his eyes met Helena's, they were completely neutral, giving nothing away. But when he made the blessing over her specifically, his fingers brushed her forehead, and she felt electricity arc between them. Mother Superior noticed nothing, too focused on the logistical details of basket distribution. You'll accompany Sister Catherine to the village, Helena. Help her deliver the baskets to the homebound elderly. It will be good practice for your future ministry. Helena spent the afternoon trudging through mountain paths, Sister Catherine chattering endlessly about her rheumatism and the weather and the state of Mrs. O'Brien's garden. Each step took her farther from the parish, farther from Dominic, and she felt the distance like a physical ache. By the time they returned, exhausted and wind-chilled, the sun was already setting behind the mountains. Evening prayers, simple dinner, evening chores. The routine that had sustained Helena for 3 years now felt like a prison. She caught glimpses of Dominic throughout the day, always at a distance, always appropriately priestly. But she felt his eyes on her, felt the promise of what awaited once darkness fell. The other sisters noticed her distraction. Sister Agnes commented on her flushed cheeks. Sister Mary asked if she was feeling well. Even young Sister Therese, barely 18 and newly professed, gave her concerned looks. Helena pleaded exhaustion from the long walk to the village and retreated to her cell immediately after evening prayers. She lay on her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling, counting the minutes until midnight. The time felt endless, each minute an hour, each hour an eternity. But finally, blessedly, the church bell began to chime midnight. Helena rose, checked that the corridor was empty, and slipped out of her cell. She moved through the darkness with more confidence this time, knowing her destination, knowing what waited for her. The door to Dominic's chambers was unlocked as promised. She entered without knocking, her heart racing with anticipation. Dominic stood by the window, looking out over the moonlit valley. He'd removed his cassock and stood in just his trousers and white shirt, sleeves rolled up, looking more human and more dangerous than ever. "Close the door, Helena." She obeyed, and the soft click sounded like a gunshot in the silence. He turned to face her, and the hunger in his eyes made her breath catch. "Take off the habit. All of it." slowly. She'd undressed for him last night, but this felt different, more deliberate. He was making her perform for him, making her choose each moment of revelation. Helena's hands trembled as she reached for her veil, unpinning it carefully. Her short blonde hair fell free, and she saw Dominic's eyes darken. The outer habit came next, the heavy black fabric pooling at her feet. Then the undergarments, until she stood bare before him again, his to claim, his to command. Beautiful. His voice was rough with restraint. Now come here and kneel before me. Helena crossed the room and sank to her knees at his feet, heart hammering, core already slick with arousal. From this angle, she had to look up to meet his eyes, had to feel her own vulnerability and submission. Do you trust me, Helena? Completely? Yes, she did. Impossibly. This creature who could kill her without effort, who could control her mind if he chose, who could damn her soul with his very existence. She trusted him more than she'd trusted anyone. Good. Because tonight I'm going to teach you how to please me with your mouth. How to take my length down your throat until I lose all control. His hand stroked her face with surprising gentleness. Last night was about your pleasure. Tonight is about mine. But first, tell me, do you want this? Do you want to taste me? To learn how to make me mindless with need? Helena's mouth went dry. In her dreams, she'd done this, had taken him in her mouth, and felt his pleasure as her own. The memory made her lick her lips unconsciously. Yes, I want to know how to please you. Then watch and learn. Dominic unfastened his trousers, freeing his rigid length. Even partially clothed, the sight was intimidating. She'd felt him inside her last night, but seeing him fully revealed in the candlelight made her stomach clench with renewed nervousness. His arousal was thick and long, already glistening at the tip. Touch me first. His voice was strained. Get used to the feel of me in your hands. Helena reached out tentatively, her fingers wrapping around his heated flesh. He was velvet over steel, impossibly hard but with skin softer than she'd expected. She stroked experimentally, watching his face for reaction. Dominic's eyes closed, a low groan escaping him. Tighter. Move your hand like this. He covered her hand with his own, showing her the rhythm and pressure he enjoyed. Helena watched, fascinated, as his length grew impossibly harder under her ministrations. Drops of moisture beaded at the tip, and without thinking, she leaned forward to taste. The flavor was salty, masculine, uniquely him. Helena licked again, learning the shape and texture of him with her tongue. Dominic's hand fisted in her short hair, not pulling but holding, as if he needed the connection to maintain control. Now take me in your mouth. As much as you can manage. Helena opened for him, slowly taking his length between her lips. The stretch was immediate, overwhelming. He was too thick, would never fit, but Dominic's hands guided her, showing her how to relax her jaw, how to breathe through her nose. Slowly, his voice was strained. Take your time. Let your mouth adjust. She worked him deeper, inch by inch, until she felt him touch the back of her throat. She gagged slightly, pulling back, but Dominic's praise kept her trying. So good. You're doing so well, sweet Helena. Just a little more. Try to relax your throat when I push deeper. Helena tried again, breathing through the instinct to gag, letting him slide deeper into her throat. The feeling was overwhelming, being filled this way, unable to breathe, completely under his control. Tears leaked from the corners of her eyes as she struggled to take him fully. Now move. Dominic's hands guided her, establishing a rhythm. Like this, taking me deep and then withdrawing. Let your tongue work against me as you move. Helena found the rhythm, bobbing her head along his length, using her hand where her mouth couldn't reach. The sounds she made were obscene, wet, and desperate. But Dominic's groans of pleasure made embarrassment impossible. She was pleasing him, making this ancient, powerful creature mindless with need, and the power of it was intoxicating. Your mouth is perfect. Dominic's control was fraying, his hips starting to thrust in counterpoint to her movements. So wet and willing and eager to take me. I'm going to come in your throat, Helena. You're going to swallow everything I give you. The command in his voice made her core clench with need. Helena redoubled her efforts, taking him as deep as she could, hollowing her cheeks and sucking hard. His hand tightened in her hair, holding her in place as his release hit. He pulsed in her mouth, flooding her throat with his essence. Helena struggled to swallow, overwhelmed by the amount, by the intimacy of the act. Some escaped the corners of her mouth, and when he finally withdrew, she was gasping and disheveled, and so desperately aroused she could barely think. Dominic lifted her effortlessly, carrying her to the bed. You pleased me well, sweet Helena. Now let me return the favor. He stripped her quickly, spreading her on the silk sheets, his mouth finding all her most sensitive places. When his tongue swept through her slick folds, Helena cried out, her back arching off the bed. He worked her mercilessly, bringing her to the edge of release again and again, but never letting her fall over. Please. She was sobbing with need, her hands fisted in his hair, trying to hold him where she needed him most. Dominic, please. I need. Tell me what you need. His breath ghosted across her oversensitive flesh. Beg me properly. I need you inside me. The admission came without shame. I need to feel you fill me. Need to feel you claim me again. Make me yours, Dominic. Please. He rose over her, positioning himself at her entrance. In one smooth thrust he was fully seated, and Helena screamed at the sudden fullness. Last night he'd been gentle, careful of her virginity. Tonight there was no such restraint. He set a punishing pace, taking her hard and deep, his hips snapping forward with supernatural strength. The bed frame creaked ominously with each thrust, and Helena wrapped her legs around his waist, taking everything he gave and demanding more. This is what you wanted, isn't it? Dominic's voice was rough, barely human. To be claimed roughly, to be taken without mercy, to feel me lose control inside you. Yes. Helena's nails raked down his back, leaving marks that healed almost instantly. More. Harder. Show me what you really are. His eyes flashed with inhuman fire, his fangs extended fully, deadly points that should have terrified her. But when he struck, sinking those fangs into her throat as he thrust deep inside her, Helena came with a scream that shook the rafters. The combination of pleasure and pain, of being penetrated in two places at once, was overwhelming. She felt him drinking from her, felt the pull at her throat, and impossibly it only heightened the pleasure. Her body convulsed around him, every nerve ending on fire. Dominic groaned against her throat, his hips stuttering as his own release hit. He pulsed inside her, flooding her with liquid heat, his fangs still buried in her neck. They collapsed together, both trembling with the intensity of their shared pleasure. Dominic licked the puncture wounds, sealing them with some property in his saliva, until only faint marks remained. I hurt you. He pulled back, searching her face for any sign of fear or regret. I lost control. I shouldn't have. Don't apologize. Helena's voice was dreamy, satisfied. That was perfect. I want you to bite me every time. I want to feel your fangs in my throat when you claim me. Dominic's expression softened with something that looked almost like wonder. You're extraordinary. Do you know that? Most humans would be horrified, would run screaming. But you, his thumb traced her swollen lips. You embrace the darkness, beg for the monster. I'm not most humans. Helena captured his thumb between her lips, sucking gently. And you're not just a monster. You're mine. The possessiveness in her words seemed to please him. He gathered her against his chest, arranging them comfortably in the large bed. Sleep now. You've given me so much tonight. Let me hold you while you rest. Helena's eyes were already drifting closed, exhaustion finally catching up with passion. But tomorrow night, she murmured, you'll teach me more? Every night. Dominic's lips pressed to her forehead. I'll teach you everything your body can feel, everything we can be together, until you're ready to make the final choice, to join me in eternity and leave your mortal life behind. The promise wrapped around Helena like a blanket as sleep claimed her. Tomorrow she'd face the daylight world, play her role as the devout novice, but tonight, and every night to come, she'd belong to the darkness, to him, forever, if that's what it took to keep feeling this complete. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of secret meetings and increasing passion. During the day, Helena went through the motions of convent life, attending prayers and doing her assigned chores with apparent devotion. But her mind was always elsewhere, counting the hours until she could slip through the darkness to Dominic's chambers. Each night brought new lessons, new pleasures. He taught her how to ride him, taking her own pleasure while watching his face tighten with need. Showed her how different positions created different sensations, how the angle of penetration could make her see stars or gently build to overwhelming release. One memorable evening, he bent her over his desk and took her from behind, his hand fisted in her hair, his hips snapping forward with supernatural force that should have hurt, but only made her scream for more. He introduced her to the pleasure of his fingers stretching her, preparing her, making her beg to be filled. Taught her how to use her mouth to bring him to the edge and hold him there, learning the signs of his impending release so she could control his pleasure as he controlled hers. But it wasn't all physical passion. They talked in the quiet hours before dawn, when Helena lay sated in his arms. He told her stories of his mortal life, of the Italian Renaissance when he'd been turned, of the centuries he'd wandered before finding purpose in the church. She shared her own history, her parents' death when she was young, the convent that had raised her, the calling she'd thought she felt toward religious life. Now she understood it hadn't been a calling to God. It had been fate drawing her to this place, to him, to her true destiny. Mother Superior noticed the change in her, though not its cause. You seem more serene, she commented one afternoon as they worked together in the garden. More certain of your vocation. Your final vows are tomorrow, child. Are you prepared to pledge yourself to God forever? Tomorrow. The word hit Helena like ice water. In all the passion and secret meetings, she'd somehow pushed aside the reality that had been approaching. Tomorrow, she was supposed to stand before the bishop and take her final vows, permanent vows, binding herself to the church in ways that would make her relationship with Dominic not just forbidden, but impossible. That evening, as she slipped into his chambers, Dominic was waiting with unusual tension in his frame. We need to talk about tomorrow. I know. Helena crossed to him, pressing herself against his solid warmth. I've been avoiding thinking about it, but we can't anymore. Dominic's arms came around her, holding her close. You have a choice to make, Helena. Take your vows and end what we have, living the life you thought you wanted. Walk away from both the convent and from me, forge a new path in the world. His hands tightened on her waist. Or choose me. Not just for these secret meetings, but truly. Let me turn you tonight. Become what I am, and we'll have eternity together. Helena pulled back to meet his eyes. You want to turn me? To make me a vampire? I want to share forever with you. Dominic's expression was more vulnerable than she'd ever seen it. These past 2 weeks have been the most alive I've felt in centuries. You make me remember what it is to feel, to want, to need. I don't want to lose you to mortality or to misguided duty to a God who would condemn what we have. But Helena, His thumb traced her cheekbone. You need to understand what you're choosing. Immortality comes with a price. You'll never see daylight again. You'll need to feed on blood to survive. You'll watch everyone you've ever known grow old and die while you remain unchanged. And the church, despite my service to it, will consider you damned. Her mind raced. Everything he described should have horrified her. The loss of sunlight, the need for blood, eternal separation from the mortal world. But when she thought about the alternative, taking vows that would separate her from Dominic, living a half-life of duty and denial, there was no real choice at all. How does it work? The turning? Dominic's eyes darkened with hunger and hope. I'll drain you to the point of death. Then you'll drink from me, taking my blood into your body. It will rewrite everything you are at a cellular level, killing your mortality and birthing something new. The process is painful, Helena. You'll feel like you're burning from the inside. But when you wake, you'll be stronger, faster, more alive than you've ever been, and you'll be mine, truly and forever. Helena thought of her life in the convent, the endless prayers, the denial of every natural desire, the crushing weight of being good enough, holy enough, worthy enough. She'd been miserable and hadn't even known it until Dominic showed her what it meant to truly feel. Turn me. Her voice was steady, certain. Tonight. Make me yours in every possible way. Are you certain? Once it's done, there's no going back. I've never been more certain of anything. Helena pulled him down for a kiss that quickly turned desperate. I don't want to go back. I don't want sunlight if it means being without you. I don't want mortality if it means we have limited time. Turn me, Dominic. Give me forever. He lifted her in his arms, carrying her to the bed they'd shared so many nights. This time there was a reverence to his movements, an awareness that what they were about to do would change everything. He undressed her slowly, as if memorizing every inch of her mortal body for the last time. When she lay bare before him, he stripped with the same deliberate care. Your vows were supposed to be tomorrow. His voice was rough with emotion as he settled between her thighs. Let me give you different vows tonight. I vow to protect you for eternity, to love you beyond the constraints of mortal time, to teach you everything our immortal lives can encompass. He entered her in one smooth thrust, and Helena gasped at the perfect feeling of being filled by him. I vow to never let you regret this choice, to show you pleasures that mortals can only dream of, to stand beside you as we face the endless centuries together. His pace was slow, deep, making her feel every inch of him. Helena wrapped her legs around his waist, pulling him deeper, meeting each thrust with her own. I vow it all to you, Helena. Mind, body, and whatever remains of my corrupted soul. His fangs extended, gleaming in the candlelight. Are you ready? Yes. She tilted her head, exposing her throat in complete trust and submission. Make me yours. Forever. Dominic struck as he thrust deep inside her. His fangs pierced her throat, and the familiar pleasure pain made Helena cry out. But this time he didn't stop after a few pulls. He kept drinking, drawing her life's blood into himself with deep, steady pulls. Helena felt the room growing distant, felt cold creeping into her limbs despite the heat of their joined bodies. She should have been afraid, should have fought. But wrapped in Dominic's arms, feeling him move inside her even as he drained her, all she felt was peace. This was right. This was meant to be. Her vision started to blur. Her heartbeat stuttered, missing beats. Just when she thought she might slip away entirely, Dominic withdrew his fangs and bit his own wrist. Drink. His voice was commanding, absolute. Drink and become what you were always meant to be. Helena latched onto his wrist, drawing his blood into her mouth. It tasted of copper and spice and ancient power. The moment it hit her system, fire exploded through her veins. She screamed against his wrist, convulsing, her body trying to reject the change even as her mind demanded it continue. Dominic held her through it, still buried deep inside her, using the pleasure of their joining to anchor her through the pain. That's it. Take all of it. Let it remake you. The fire grew hotter, burning away everything she'd been and forging something new in its place. Helena felt her mortal life die, felt every human weakness and limitation stripped away. And beneath it, rising like a phoenix, came something dark and powerful and utterly free. Her senses exploded. She could hear Dominic's heartbeat, could smell the tang of blood in the air, could see every detail of his face with perfect clarity despite the dim candlelight. And the pleasure of their joining that had been overwhelming as a human was now transcendent. She could feel every nerve ending, every point of contact between their bodies, magnified 1,000-fold. Dominic. His name came out in a voice that was hers but different, lower, holding power she'd never possessed. She felt incredible, alive in ways she'd never been while actually living. He began to move again, his thrusts becoming harder, faster, taking advantage of her new supernatural durability. Helena met him, thrust for thrust, her enhanced strength allowing her to match his pace. They moved together with inhuman speed and force, the bed frame finally giving up and crashing to the floor. Neither of them paused, too lost in the overwhelming sensation. Helena felt her fangs descend for the first time, sharp and deadly and perfect. Without thinking, she struck, burying them in Dominic's throat as he'd done to her so many times. His blood flooded her mouth, richer and more potent than his wrist had been. The taste of him, the feeling of feeding while he moved inside her, while their bodies joined and their blood mixed, was the most erotic thing she'd ever experienced. Dominic roared his pleasure, his hips snapping forward with enough force to crack bones if she'd still been human. Helena loved it, loved the power and passion and complete lack of restraint. This was what she'd been craving all along, not the gentle worship of a devoted lover, but the savage claiming of an eternal mate. They came together, Helena's body clenching around him as her first vampire orgasm crashed through her system. It was so intense that she saw stars, felt the universe expand and contract around them. Dominic's release matched hers, pulsing inside her, marking her in the most primal way possible. When they finally collapsed together in the ruins of the bed, both were gasping unnecessarily, their bodies still humming with the aftershocks. Helena withdrew her fangs, licking the wounds closed as instinct taught her. She felt amazing, powerful, complete. "How do you feel?" Dominic's voice held wonder and satisfaction. "Perfect." Helena stretched, marveling at how smoothly her body moved now, how strong she felt. "Like I've been asleep my entire life, and just now woke up." She turned to meet his eyes. "Thank you. For showing me what I could be. For giving me forever." Dominic pulled her close, pressing kisses to her face and hair. "Welcome to immortality, my eternal companion. My love." The words settled into Helena's chest, warm despite the lack of heartbeat. Love. Yes, that's what this was. What it had been all along, hiding beneath the lust and forbidden desire. Tomorrow the convent would wake to find her gone, her cell empty, no explanation for her disappearance. They'd search and pray and eventually mourn, never knowing the truth. Mother Superior would be disappointed. The other sisters would be confused. The bishop would be annoyed at the wasted ceremony. But Helena felt no guilt, no regret. She'd found her true calling, her real purpose, not in denial and duty, but in passion and power and eternal love. As dawn approached, Dominic showed her the hidden chamber beneath his rooms, a windowless sanctuary where they could sleep safe from the sun. "We'll need to leave here soon," he explained as they settled into the darkness. "Once your absence is noted, there will be questions. We'll travel, see the world, find a new place to make our own." "Where should we go?" Helena asked, already excited at the prospect of endless possibilities. "Everywhere." Dominic pulled her against his chest, both of them settling into the still sleep of the undead. "We have eternity, Helena. We'll explore every corner of the world, experience everything it has to offer. Together. Together." Helena closed her eyes, surrendering to the death-like sleep that claimed all vampires during daylight. Her last thought was gratitude. Gratitude that she'd confessed those dreams. Gratitude that Dominic had answered her call. Gratitude for the courage to choose darkness over false light. Eternal damnation over mortal mediocrity. The virgin nun had died. In her place rose something magnificent and terrible and utterly free. And somewhere in the darkness of their shared sanctuary, two vampires held each other as the sun rose over a world they'd explore together for all the centuries to come. The end.